I hope you're having an amazing day so far. Happy Friday. Thank you guys so much for tuning in once again to hear what I have to say about this topic that I've been struggling with. It took me quite a bit to make a decision that I wanted to talk about these issues because as African living in America, I come across a lot of African Americans that I work with, and some of them I connected with through church and everything. And I have I've had multiple discussions with enough of them to come to this conclusion. And I am going to give you my own personal opinion as far as what I think about why do African Americans think they're superior to Africans. So you may feel free to let me know in the comment section down below based off of the things that I am about to talk about. All right. So if you're finding me for the first time, my name is Mervell. I'm Congolese, but I live in the United States of America. I do business in Congo. More specifically, I'm investing in farming. I travel back and forth to Congo to run my activities over there. But I am currently residing in America. But my ultimate goal is one day to move back to Africa and focus on my farming projects that I already have going on. So if you are interested in what I have to say, stick around, watch the video till the end, and please do me a favor, let me know where you're tuning in from and hit the like button so that the YouTube algorithm can send it to multiple people and let them join the chat so we can have a discussion about this. All right, so without further ado, let's jump straight to today's video, guys. Okay, I've been living in America for 12 years now, going on 13. So it'll be 13 years in a little bit, all right, in the next couple of months. When I first came here, I was introduced to variety of people through, friends that I've stayed with and other family members and stuff. And I also personally developed certain relationships with people that live here in America and they have friends that are African Americans they went to school with, all right? But more specifically, I made most of those friend group at my employers. So I've worked for different, employers, and I've made enough African American friends there that I'm still cool with. I have their phone numbers, we're still communicating. Sometimes we, link up, we go out for a drink, we really hang out, you know what I'm saying? So the friendship is still alive, all right? But the problem though is most of the time when I come across with an African American, when they find out that I am from Africa, they ask me numerous questions, all right? A lot of curious questions that most people want to ask or want to know about Africa, right? And I'm always open to having these sort of conversations because my goal, I feel as though we as Africans, we need to bridge gap with African Americans to some extent, all right? Because there are a lot of stereotypes me as Africans that I haven't learned or I think I know about African Americans that are not always true. Some of them are true, but not all of them. But it just depends on what group and what their background is, where they're from, what part of the country they live in. Those are the factors that you also need to take into account to determine what their thought process is the way it is, all right? I always don't jump into conclusion. I take my time to really understand where someone is coming from. And then I will also explain to them realities that they didn't know, right, about Africa. But I'm going to get this started off with one of the most recent conversations that I've had at work. All right, so in case you didn't know, I'm a police officer. I work in a police department in Philadelphia area. I'm not going to give all the detailed information for security purposes, all right? Because I don't know who's watching. I don't know what people are capable to do these days, okay? So one of my sergeants, right? I'm not going to mention their name either. One of my sergeants, good guy, squared away guy, a college educated guy, smart. I actually admire the guy. I also work with another officer who's from Haiti, born and grew up there, but he moved to the United States back in 1991, 1999, I think he told me. Last time I rode with him, right? We were in a dual car, so we were having a conversation. It was our first time together, so we kind of shared a little bit of like similar stories. It shared stories about Haiti, I shared stories about Congo and things like that. So he's from a village part of Haiti. He grew up extremely poor, all right? So he told his stories to all some of the coworkers, and they thinking about Haiti being an all black country with all the stereotypes that most Western countries have about black people, right? So for them, my other coworker from Haiti, it pretty much checked the box for them. So when we were having this conversation with my sergeant and the dude would happen to be there too, we all were talking about all of this stuff, right? First question he asked me, my sergeant, right? I'm not making this up. He asked me like, with all the with all this the animals and stuff, have you seen lions? Have you seen leopards? Have you seen all of these wild animals? Like before I answer his questions, I just started laughing, right? I'm like, Sarge, I don't blame you, but I get this a lot, but I'm going to, to share this with you though. I said, well, believe it or not, my very first time seeing a wild animal, literally in nature not being captured, is when I've moved to the United States of America. That's when I started seeing deer running around. When you're driving, you got to be careful, especially if you work like early shift. You're driving to work, you really gotta watch out where you're driving to, right? Because just deers, they'll pop up on you in the middle of the roads, and boom, you get into a car accident. So I told him that, and he was surprised. I'm like, all right, I know you will be surprised, but I'm from Kinshasa. It's a capital city. We don't see animals like that. The only time I remember seeing like animals, it was when we visited the zoo on behalf of my school. And this was years ago. I might have been between the age of, I'd say maybe 11 and 13 years old. That's when we went and visited the zoo. I said that was the only time I saw some of the animals that I saw. I mean, at Kinshasa Zoo, they don't even have lions down there anymore. But they still have those two leopards that stay there. So I told him that. He was shocked, right? I said, well, I don't understand. Because in a lot of people's mind, when they hear the word Africa, first thing that comes to their minds is jungle. A lot of people look at Africa as jungle, right? And I had to explain to him that there are certain areas in different provinces, it's the bush, you will get that. But in order for you to see a wild animal in their habitat, you will have to embark on a journey to go to the safari, which means you step out of your comfort zone. You get out of the city. You pay a fare. You get into the bus. You drive hundreds of kilometers far away from the city to see the animals in their natural habitat. Just like you see documentaries about safari in Serengeti and Kruger Park and so forth, all right? So I had to explain to him, it was like, oh, wow. I mean, nobody have ever told me that. And he's right. He's probably never been around African like that, right? And I'm my first one in his squad, in his platoon, who's from Africa. And we had the conversation. I told him. Another thing that also made it better, one of my other coworkers who's African American, he was also there when we were having this conversation. So this guy is more knowledgeable of what the world is like because he's a traveler. He's been to probably 25 countries so far, and he's been to multiple cities around the world. He's been to South Africa at least 2 times, right? He's been to South Africa twice. So while we were having this discussion, he didn't really have much to say because he knew our sergeant didn't know, right? He literally pulled out his phone. He's showing my sergeant when he was in Cape Town, because they were in the air, it was like a hot air balloons or something, and then it was showing the view of the city, right? Amazing. It's like, wait, is that in Africa? It's like, yeah, that's Cape Town. is one of the most advanced cities probably in the world, right? More beautiful than certain American cities. He was shocked. So that right there, it ended the conversation that we were having. Because in a lot of most African Americans' minds, Africans are just straight from the jungle. And it's not only to those that was not properly educated, but here we even talking about those that are educated, but because they've believed so much to what the mainstream media have taught them about Africa that they didn't even bother to do their own research to actually learn, excuse me, more about Africa. When you see this picture, that's why I have on my thumbnail. The picture that I have on my thumbnail, it is the exact image of what most African Americans have of Africa. The moment you say that you're from Africa, that is the first thing that comes to their minds. Kids starving, walking around in the bush next to like wild animals, and all of this other stuff, right? All right, I'm going to excuse myself and got to take a sip out of my coffee before it gets cold. Yeah, I might as well hold on to it. All right, guys. So, and when we had that conversation, me personally, I wasn't shocked at all because that was not my first time. But for him, it was a learning moment because he's never actually come across somebody who told him what I had to say about Africa. And let alone, I also explained to him going back to 2010 when the World Cup was organized in South Africa, right? That was a way to put South Africa on the world map. I said, you know why? Like a lot of people now are traveling to South Africa to go. They go to the Kruger Park and now wanted to learn more about Africans and things like that. It's because when people went to South Africa, they were expecting to see giraffes, rhinos, lions running around the streets. But when they got there, they saw the accommodations, the infrastructures, everything. They were appalled. They couldn't believe what they saw, right? And now they started asking curious questions. Well, where the animals at, right? That's when they learned that in order for you to see these animals, you're going to go far away from here, way far away. They wait somewhere in the bush. And it's not only, it's also organized. You have to pay the fare, you have to get a ticket, you got to pay for the safari trucks and all of that stuff. You get into the safari trucks and they drive you around, you'll see all of these animals. Depending how long you're going to be staying there, they also have beautiful and luxurious accommodations where you stay there, right? And you're just having a good time of your life. So many people nowadays they became a little more, their perception of Africa has changed based on the things that they saw in South Africa during World Cup 2010. But unfortunately, up until now, there are still more African Americans who still think of Africa as a jungle. Another thing also is when you have an African accent, they look down on you. They don't think you don't worth anything and things like that. In my line of work, I've locked up many people. That I'm bragging about it. I don't lock up people who don't deserve to be locked up, but I only locked up those that deserve to be locked up. When I lock some people up and I'm talking to them, they always ask me where I'm from. And I'll tell them where I come from, and they'll start asking me all of these other questions. A lot of them are ignorant, but I try not to let it get to me too much because I already know, like, it's not only African Americans, even Africans. I'll tell you one thing. Before I came to the United States, I thought I was taught to stay away from African Americans. I was taught to stay away from African Americans because they're violent, they're criminals, they're like all sort of stereotypes that would really scare you from spending time around a certain group of people. I had that too. Do you know how I've learned those about African Americans? Mainstream media. before even having a chance to spend time with them, I had already had a preconceived notion of what African Americans are, right? But then when I came to the United States, I met some of them. Not all of them are like that. Some of them really great people, people that will really help you out when you needed help and things like that, all right? So the way we think, of course, is different. They grew up in a country that promotes individualism, okay? And they don't see things the same way we see things. They don't operate the same way we do operate. But it's just sad that in 21st century, there are people here in America, a country you will consider civilized, but you see the things that happen here, you're not going to believe what you see. It's beyond imaginable. You know what I'm saying? But I patrol like the projects area of Philadelphia, like the low income and like what you call the hood. The people's mentality there, it's trust me, it's awful. You will ask yourself questions, man. Like these people talk down on Africans, but they live in areas like this. This is how they behave themselves. It's outrageous. But I'm probably gonna have to make a video about the projects based on my personal experience working in those areas as a cop. Then we'll probably get to learn the difference between certain African Americans, depending on where they're coming from. It just goes the same as Africans, right? Certain Africans, not Africans from the bush or from villages, they don't behave the same way as us Africans who grew up in metropolitans like Kinshasa, Lubumbashi, Goma, Boma, Mwanda, and all of these other big cities in Congo, right? So we see things more differently. Like the way we see things is not the same way that they do. And that goes the same as African Americans too. I guarantee you, if you put two African Americans, one from the hood, from the projects, and another one, who grew up in the city, who grew up in the suburbs, they don't think alike. They're not like-minded, all right? They see the world differently. They wouldn't do things the same way. An African American from the projects can easily walk down the streets, snap on a chick and slap the brakes off of them. But one from the suburbs would think twice because they acknowledge the presence of law and order. All right, not that everybody that lives in the suburbs are like that, but it's more so the chances of that happening, it's very, very slim because they see what their community is all about and they are held accountable. So that's why they understand the consequences of breaking the law. They are more likely to be compliant and knowledgeable of what's happening in their surrounding versus most African Americans from the projects. Most of them grow up in single parents homes. The father is not around, and they grew up with a mother, and they see the mother snapping and seeing everybody on the streets getting into a fight. It became a normal thing to them. Even when the cops show up, they do not want to point fingers to anybody because of fear of repercussions, right? Which could be the same way as Africans from the village and African grew up in the city. The only difference is African who grew up in a city, in a village, they're not as violent. All right, they just don't know better. That's the only difference. So you have to make your own personal interpretation of what you think is better and what is not. And feel free to let me know in the comment section down below. This probably is not enough to determine why I think African Americans thinks they're superior, because they think when they came from America, infrastructure's all over or whatever, no matter where they come from, they may be from the project, from the hood, they think they're above Africans. But in all reality, the reality is the opposite of what they thinking, okay? But there are a lot of African Americans who know better, and they don't fall into the stereotypes that the mainstream media has put out there for Africans. Therefore, they're very fully aware of that. And also Africans, on the other hand, they have a misconception of African Americans, that they violent, they the thugs, they all of this bad things that they were labeled as, right? But with, in all honesty, all we need to do is to just conduct a little more research about one another and understand each other's culture and thought process. It's still going to be difficult for a lot of people. No matter what you say, they will still think you're inferior. But the reality is very deceiving, very disappointing. All right, guys, so I just made it to work. I wanted to keep this short and nice and short. I'll probably do a part two to talk more about this in depth. But let me know in the comment section what you think of this, and please feel free to comment and also give me your opinion in the comment section down below. Until the next one, I'll see you guys soon. Peace.